two, one. Hey everybody, welcome to Kingdom of Honor Does Pop Culture. I'm your host, Sandman Shane Sabunia, and today we're talking about a couple of things. We're talking, start with, about Batman Mask of the Phantasm. This is a movie that came out, I think, in 1993.
Yep.
And I remember, like, I talked with about my brother at the time, and he kind of wanted to see it. I was like, "That's a stupid name for a movie. What the hell's a phantasm?" And I didn't want to see it. Then, of course, over the years, it's become kind of making like a cult classic. I still had never seen it. So we're talking about like what 28 years ago now, and but I'm watching the Batman the DC animated universe, starting with, of course, Batman the animated series, and I got to the point where I had watched the Cape and the Cowl conspiracy, which is where uh, the bat signal gets introduced for the first time, and because the bat signal appears in this movie, this is kind of where people put it in the timeline to watch. And since we didn't really have anything on tap, I asked Jeff, "Do you want to watch this Batman movie?" And so we did. Um, what were your thoughts on it, Jeff?
I'm not big into cartoon Batman. Like animated superheroes, I've never really been big into, so it was kind of a flop for me to begin with. But then after realizing it was made in '93 and not 2016, it made a little bit more sense. I guess I didn't realize Mark Hamill has been doing the voice of the Joker that long.
Yeah, that's why he's the greatest Joker of all time.
I mean, it wasn't I don't know. I The story was decent but weird, but typical Batman. There were a couple of moments that I was like, "What? That doesn't make any sense." But then I realized it's a cartoon; it's not going to make any sense. And not only is it a cartoon, it's freaking superheroes, so it's definitely not going to make sense. But the movie was a bomb at the theaters, which doesn't surprise me because back in '93, that was not really a thing that people did was go to the movie theater to watch a cartoon. But then after it was released to like home video, then it became a ridiculous success and, like you said, a cult classic, and moved on from
Well,
there. But
the reason it was released in the theaters is because Batman was so hot at the time. They had done um, Batman with Michael Keaton, and then they had done Batman Returns the year before this was released, and basically the studio was trying to get anything Batman out it could because Batman was so hot going on, and this was originally planned to just be a direct to video movie release, and then the studio said no, 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 we're releasing it theatrically, and then gave them and then cut a year off the production time for them as well, which is why it appears a little choppy in places.
well, and
Uh,
it was released on Christmas Day and everything too, so um, they had high hopes for it. But like you
yeah, I
said, I
was
mean, Batman was one of the hottest things out there, and then the Val Kilmer Batman came out the next year.
speaking of
So,
Val Kilmer, it was up against Tombstone on opening.
oh, well, yeah, and that's a tough movie to be up against anywhere.
And
Um,
they had also had done, because it wasn't really the way marketing works in Hollywood is you have to plan these things like months and months in advance, and because the studio had kind of rushed it into theaters, they didn't have any marketing going for it either.
oh, yeah.
So that like nobody knew about it.
So they were just trying to capitalize on the name.
They were, yeah,
Yeah, that's a big
yeah.
mistake. And I mean, it was the old Warner Brothers cartoon logo that they used in the beginning of it with that one to me just that set the wrong tone from the very
It did,
beginning
it
because
did.
that's a comedy haha laughing intro that they did with the whole
Looney
Bugs
Tunes.
Bunny and Looney Tunes and all that stuff. It just set the wrong tone from the beginning, and then it was kind of a little battle from there. And then shortly into the show, all of a sudden Batman is fighting criminals with just a hoodie on, and it made no sense to me. It was like, wait, it's Batman. Why doesn't he have his bat cape on?
Well, um, the what was I gonna say? Yeah, the whole story was, was I lost. There was something you said there that I was going to touch on, but I mean, I thought this was really cool. Or kind of an origin. It was almost like an origin story for Batman, but past the usual, crap about his parents dying, and in the alley which he's seen like 800 million times.
Right.
But this is actually showing like why did Bruce, kind of like the edge that Bruce Wayne was on, where he was going to fight crime to kind of to make Gotham safe, like it wasn't for his parents, but then he also had this opportunity to just live a life as you know um, well, obviously rich, but you're a man in love with a woman and raise a family and that kind of thing. And he was like right on that edge and trying to decide what he wanted to do. And he had leaned towards marrying his girlfriend that he had met. And then crime took her away from him as well, where she like fled across the world with her father.
Mm.
Um, and then that kind of turned him, and that kind of took away his last kind of grasp at having a normal life, and that's what led him to become Batman. But
See, and
I thought that was kind of a really cool
it it
aspect of the story.
it is, but I'm kind of sick of seeing that similar storyline just with a different girl. It's always somebody different. Vicky Vale and now Andrea, and how many other women have there been where it's been the love interest of Batman and it just doesn't work out and it leads him more into his despair and all this crap. It was just and see that's where it was like I
That's interesting
was
because I felt this was like more an original take on it because I thought
after I
you know
found out when
you
it
know
was
you know
made, I agreed.
after you found out what.
After I realized it was made in '93, then I was like, oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Vicky Vale to me wasn't Bruce Wayne trying to decide whether he's going to be Batman or not. He was already Batman at that point. It was more he was just kind of trying to have like a double life, with Vicky Vale. I don't think he was ever going to give up the cape for Vicky Vale.
Yeah, and that was a interesting twist where he was actually contemplating that with Andrea. That
Right.
definitely was an interesting twist. But like I said, I thought this movie was made in 2016 when I initially looked at it. Um,
Oh, okay.
I
Yeah.
didn't look at the date. I was just like, oh, because I didn't, I don't. I guess I didn't really realize when it was made until after the fact.
Oh, so you're not like me when you remembered like this coming in theaters like back in
Oh God,
when we
no.
were basically graduating high school. You know?
93, I was my freshman year at college. I don't remember
Yeah.
anything from 93 to about 95.
You're just blackout drunk all the
It
time, or
was
what?
party time all day, every
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. Yeah. And the funny thing is that one reason I already told you like one reason I didn't want to see is like that's such stupid name for like the hell is a phantasm, and the other thing was because there wasn't any marketing behind it. I was like, you can't do like a Batman movie and not have the Joker featured in it. And boy, was the Joker actually featured in this
Oh
one.
yeah, yeah, it was.
But I had no idea that he was until actually what I don't know, about a half an hour into this hour and 16-minute movie.
No, I
Um,
mean Joker really didn't show up until with I mean there was like 45 minutes left into it. So you're right, it was like a half hour in. Um, and then he like took over. The whole Gotham, mini Gotham scene I thought was kind of cool. One of those rare things that you could never do unless it was a cartoon.
mhm.
But like the two Goliaths standing in the middle of this miniature Gotham fighting, I thought was kind of fun. The whole Phantasm thing, though, was, I don't know, I felt it kind of fell
And I don't think they
flat,
ever. I don't.
especially when we had the reveal of who it really was.
I think they're done. I think they're it was kind of obvious by the time that they revealed who it was. Who
Yeah,
it was.
oh yeah.
Um, and the I don't think they ever actually called the her you know vengeful personality, whatever you want to call it, the phantasm in the course of the movie.
They never called it anything. It
Yeah.
was just a masked
Well,
figure.
no, they called it the Bat many times, but
Well,
it
yeah,
wasn't.
because they
But it
thought
wasn't. It
because
wasn't him.
originally they thought it was the Bat because some moron saw him and it went, "Oh, it's a cape, it's Batman."
Yeah.
But it was just weird because, I'm used to the new Batman now, where it's like there's a love-hate with there's still the GCPD. Like we just watched in Zack Snyder's cut. GCPD is still kind of like yeah, okay, it looks like it could be the Batman who's the big bad, and then Gordon's like, seriously, come on, he's been fighting crime for 20 years. Why would he all of a sudden now start abducting people? That's the version of the Batman that I'm used to seeing now. So seeing him being hunted by the police was kind of a little bit off too. But like I said, once I realized it was made in '93, then it made a whole lot more sense.
You were really in the wrong mindset watching this
I
movie.
really was, and I seriously, I think that the second that Warner Brothers logo with Looney Tunes came on, it got me into a whole different mindset, um, and I was off from that moment.
That really was jarring because Batman the Animated Series was not made for children. It
Mm-mm.
was made for young adults into adulthood, and to see that come up, I was like, is this going to be like a goofy, movie along the lines of Looney Tunes? Am I going to hate this thing? And I actually loved it. I thought it was a fantastic movie. But that part, I do agree that coming up made me like really got me kind of on edge to start with.
Right, exactly. And I mean, with that, and then the fact that, I've never been a real big, um, I like the live action better than the comics or than the cartoons. So that was a huge, change in my mood with it
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well.
That's hilarious to me because like Batman, started as a comic for I don't know 25 years before he was actually on a TV
Oh,
show.
Jesus
You know.
Christ, it was longer ago than that. I mean, it started in, first Detective Comics was like 35, wasn't it?
Okay, yeah, but the Batman show was in the 60s, right?
Late
So
60s. I thought it was late 60s.
okay,
And
okay,
even then, it was campy and goofy and, cartoonish. But once Michael Keaton took over the role, it took on a whole different feel, whole different vibe. And then, of course, it continued with, Val Kilmer, and even George Clooney's version was, a little bit on the darker side. And then Christian Bale, of course, just took it over the edge.
yeah. I just didn't know that I didn't know you were that against animated movies. So
It's not that I'm against them. Like, I'll watch them, depending on, what it is, my mindset, my mood, everything like that. It's never been my favorite form of Batman. Um, just because I don't know. Once I got into the whole dark and brooding Batman, the whole cartoon Batman kind of, even though he's still kind of dark and brooding, it's still just
kinda, he's totally dark and brooding.
it's just the whole, I don't know. It's hard to explain. I've just never really gotten into the cartoony version.
Well, I guess I can see that, but if you, it's still it's kind of baffling to me because it's he started in the comics. That's where
Oh yeah.
that's primarily where you're going to see Batman is in the comics. So,
Well, yeah, and I
uh,
agree with that, but it's the same thing with Iron Man. I ain't reading an Iron Man comic. I'm just not.
well, Iron Man is a fascinating subject because he was never like a super selling best selling comic. He was never a huge member of the Marvel universe until
The
they
MCU.
basically had to like look and see, okay, so who can we actually focus our Marvel stories on, because we don't have the Fantastic Four, we don't have Spider-Man, we don't have the X-Men, we don't have Daredevil. Who are we going to we don't have the Punisher even. Like, I mean, who are we going to be able to start a universe with? And they kind of picked then they went with Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor. So those kind of became and they've kind of been retconned in the Marvel universe to be this, but kind of like the big three of the Marvel universe, and that never really was the case.
And
You know,
that's interesting now that you say that, because I remember, back in the day, it was always like you said, the X-Men, it was, Fantastic Four, those were the big guns, Spider-Man even. But now that you say it, when I look back, because they've done such a good job over the last 20 years, I do think of Thor, Captain America, and Iron Man as the big three.
right? And that's how they portray them in the comics now, but they really never. I mean, Captain America, I guess I guess I would have always put Captain America in that, but it probably would have been Captain America, Spider-Man, and Wolverine. You know,
Yep, Wolverine definitely.
you know.
But yeah, I mean, now that you mention that, they've just done such a great job with those characters that now those are the forefront. Even Spider-Man has kind of taken somewhat of a backseat to those three.
Right, because he's like the young kid on the scene now.
Right.
I mean, he's had some really cool scenes in the Avengers movies, but he's not the forceful leader that he's become in the comics.
No, right, exactly. So yeah,
Yeah.
that is interesting that you think about that. It's just that they've done such a great job of it that they've been able to make that change.
Right, and then when it started happening, like when the Iron Man movie was over with, I was like, wow, that was really amazing. It's like I see Iron Man kind of in a new light. he really is kind of the. I mean, yes, he uses armor to do it, but he really is kind of the powers wise the Superman of the Marvel universe, just using armor.
Right.
And yet he was never really portrayed that way in the Marvel universe.
Well, and I mean, he's a cross between Batman and Superman. He's so overpowered with his technology, but he's rich, which is why he was able to make that technology. So he's kind of that cross between the two, which made him even more attractive because everybody's so used to the Superman and Batman stories, and they love those characters so much that having a combination of the two, and then of course, his comedy factor, Tony Stark, and Robert Downey Jr. did such a great job playing Tony Stark that it really kind of jumped him to the forefront.
You know who else is a cross between Batman and Superman? Kind of
Who's that?
the Superman in the Snyderverse. He's
Yeah.
almost like he's almost flying Batman. He's kind of like a brooding, character who wasn't sure what he wanted to do, and he's kind of, I mean, he's not afraid to kill the way that Superman is in the comics.
Well, yeah, we saw
It's
that in Man of Steel.
yeah, I mean, it's and that's why, like, last night I was talking to my son-in-law, and he's like, I'm really, we're planning on watching those movies you told us to watch, especially since I told them about like the Snyder cut, but I'm kind of really dreading watching Man of Steel because I do not like Superman. I was like,
You
yeah,
will.
I was like, yeah, I felt the same way when I first watched Man of Steel because I was like, do I really want to watch another Superman origin story? But then the way they do it is so great, and it's almost like flying Batman. So.
Well, and like I said, it kind of Zack Snyder and this whole universe really took a change of pace with their just the way they portrayed their characters, and I think a lot of that's because of Christian Bale. Um, and yeah, I can't remember who the director was with that, Christopher Nolan. And his portrayal of Batman took the entire universe into a whole new direction. Because I mean, I remember watching, even the Batman in the 80s and early 90s was still somewhat campy. I mean, it was a little darker than normal, but it was still somewhat campy. And I mean, the Superman from the 80s with Christopher Reeves was just straight up superhero comic book stuff.
Yeah, it was. And as a kid, I enjoyed those movies, but now, like, even thinking about going back and watching them, it kind of turns my stomach.
I went back and tried to watch the first one again, and I got 15 minutes in. I'm like, Jacob, I'm not doing this. I'm just, I'm just not. And it's no offense, to Christopher Reeve. I mean, he did a hell of a job playing Superman, but even looking back now and watching it, like Superman 3 and 4 were just dumb.
Yeah, they were for sure.
And it's still hard
Especially,
for me to watch the
I mean,
Brandon Roth version.
three is pretty much a straight comedy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, even Lex Luthor, Gene Hackman, his portrayal of Lex Luthor was more comedic. That's why I'm liking the Jesse Eisenberg version, because it's more back to the Psycho Lex that I loved, especially the one that was in uh, Supergirl.
Hmm.
So I'm kind of liking the Jesse Eisenberg version. More so than now when I look back at Gene Hackman. I mean, granted, they did a phenomenal job with it for the time, but when you look back at it now, it's like it reminds me of the 1960s, Batman.
Have you watched any of Superman and Lois yet?
No, not yet. I'm waiting until the whole season's done, then I'll watch it.
Okay, I really, I was kind of on the fence about it, mostly just because of my own personal. Well, first of all, Superman's always been kind of boring to me. And secondly, just I was kind of annoyed that they had chosen to go with that spin-off instead of Green Arrow and the Canaries. I really
Yeah,
thought
that
I really wanted a continuation of that story.
because
You
I
know,
I really liked Oliver's daughter being the new Green Arrow in 2025. I think that would have been a fun show to watch.
yeah, me too. 2045.
2045, yep, you're right.
Yeah, yeah, me too. But I really enjoyed Superman and Lois. I like this version of those two characters where they're 20 years into their relationship, and they have these two teenage boys that are growing up, and they're and one of them has developed powers, one of them hasn't so far, and they're trying to figure out how to live in this new reality that they're in. And it's been a really cool show. And seeing seeing kind of a mature version of that character that's had these powers for a long time, and is also a dad. It's been. I really think this could be the best show in that universe right now. I mean, Flash is great. There's no question. But I really think this has the
Wait,
potential
hold
to
up.
be the best
Hold
show.
up. As much as you've hated The Flash, did you really just say The Flash is great?
There's been seasons of the Flash that drug it down for me, but
Like season three,
overall, overall three, and
the
then
Savitar one, and then
the
this last
Saboteur
one.
one, and then season six. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, but this season has been, but I think they really, they figured out whatever was wrong, and they really picked up the ball and ran with it so far this season. I think they picked up the pieces nicely, and they're back to season 2, 4, and 5 levels of greatness.
I even
So
thought season one was really good.
yeah, it was.
But yeah, it's another one. I'm waiting until the season drops. I'm trying not to hear too much about it, but I've heard some beloved characters are gone. Um, which is, I mean, I knew Ralph was going to be gone, but the other one kind of caught me by surprise because over the last 6 seasons, he's been probably my favorite character. Well, not this version of him, but different variations of this guy throughout the seasons.
Yeah, and the other thing is what they've done with it, and I know they're Diggle's supposed to make some guest appearances across the Arrowverse this year as well, but and I think that'll also be part of this, but they're actually showing like there actually things actually come out of Crisis that really we haven't really seen on other shows.
Well, I'd heard that Diggle's appearances throughout this year is going to lead to him being the new Green Lantern.
I think so.
That was the rumor that I heard, and like everything that he does, his little guest appearances is gonna be leading more and more towards. And when you think about the Green Lantern and the Ring and who it seeks out and everything, it makes sense that out of everybody in the DCU, it would be John Diggle. Because
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, he's been kind of a tortured soul. He's made some mistakes throughout time. He had his whole drug addiction and he had, his whole battle with his brother. But ultimately, is there anybody in the universe that's more honorable than John Diggle?
well, it's not just honor; it's also being able to overcome fear,
Right.
and he's done that, ever, throughout the course of his not, even his military career before we even saw him on Arrow,
hmm
So
I
yeah,
mean, you could say possibly Cisco, but I couldn't see Cisco as another um, as a Green Lantern. Overall, I could see John Diggle easily roll into that role,
I,
fall
I
into that
could
role.
I could too, and the other thing with that is I could see you could also kind of see Renee going the other way. You could see Renee kind of
Yeah.
kind of swinging either way, but you could kind of see Renee with just the way he is in the future with his fear for his daughter and stuff. You could kind of see him, if, at some point falling down to become a Yellow Lantern. you know,
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that does make sense.
yeah.
So, okay, and
Uh,
like WandaVision, I finally watched
well,
it.
before we get
Oh,
there,
sorry.
I wanted to also, just while we're still on the DC universe, I also wanted to say that I've seen some interesting stuff this week, regarding the Snyder Cut and the Snyder Verse. That first of all, number one, Snyder Cut has now overtaken Wonder Woman 1984 as far as streams, which is just spectacularly amazing
hmm
considering one of them is a remake that was supposed to play to a small audience, and the other one was meant to be a tentpole um, blockbuster for the studio.
Right.
Um, and one of them came out, 3 months ago. The other one just came out 10 days ago. The other thing is that apparently there's a big conflict brewing within AT&T about the Snyderverse, where Warner Media basically came out 3 days after the Snyder Cut was released, before the numbers were even there, and said, "This is it. We're not doing any more Snyder movies. He's gone." Basically telling the fans, "Shut up and get on board with what we're doing in the future, because we're going to be woke, and that's all there is to it."
Right.
Um, People at AT&T are looking at this going, "Hey, this is making us money. If it's
Lots of
making us
money.
money, we should do more Snyderverse."
Well, and that's what I told
So,
you. You brought that to me, what early this week, and I'm like, just hold up, wait till the numbers come in and see what happens. You know,
right. And yeah, I mean, what I hadn't thought of though is that there's two different forces at play here. It's kind of like what's going on at Disney, where you've got the Lucasfilm versus the Disney people.
right,
Here you've got HBO Max versus Warner Media,
right.
two different
Yeah, so
entities that are under the same umbrella. You know,
yeah, and that is an interesting thing too. And I kind of said that to you. It's like, yeah, I know what they said, and I know what you said about the about how Warner Brothers was like, no, no, we're going with our version. But I was like, just hold up and wait till the numbers come in. It's still too early, and ultimately the companies are going to make their decision on what sells. And right now, the Zack Snyder version, even though it's 4 hours long, is what's selling.
yeah, and now they've even got another version of it out there that was out on came out on Thursday called Justice is Gray.
Well,
So
and like we talked about, I mean, the only reason the Zack Snyder version even got made was because of the clamoring of the universe, the fans and everything. Otherwise, that movie never would have even been made.
right.
So once the fans start talking, AT&T is going to listen, just because that's their company. They're in profit making business. They're going to find out what people want and give it to them.
Yeah, see, and that's and you're right. You definitely did tell me that earlier in the week. It's what's happened though. Basically, is that Warner Media, is more interested in being this quote unquote progressive, diverse company that just wants to basically tell people what they're going to like.
So
Whereas AT&T, as their parent company, is looking at that, and like you just said, they're looking at what's going to make us money.
right. So what you're saying is Warner Brothers is WWE and AT&T is every other wrestling company on the planet.
That's a great analogy. I love it. Okay, so I'm sorry. You wanted to talk about WandaVision?
Yeah, I mean briefly, because I finally watched the whole thing, and I'm not gonna lie, I had my qualms in the beginning because I remember like I love Vision as a character. I always have. He's always been one of my favorite. Even before he made
Sorry.
even before he made the MCU, he was one of the few comics that I actually read. But the one thing I didn't like about the comic books um, was the whole sitcom-y feel. And then when you said that that first one came out and it was a 50s sitcom, I was like, ugh, I'm not gonna watch this. One day I was just sitting here, I'm like, you know what, fuck it, I got nothing else to do. It's a half hour, let's see what it is. And I was pleasantly surprised with the first episode enough to continue watching it, and ultimately overall, with the way they explained the first episode, that that it was and I originally felt kind of honeymooners, you felt bewitched, but it was actually more of a Dick Van Dyke episode. Um, which was kind of a cross because their superpowers and everything. But um, once they got into explaining why the world existed and why it was this sitcom type thing and all this stuff, I really enjoyed it. And all the way through from episode 4 through the end, the episode 9, those last 5 episodes, every one of them hit home. And I thought it was just an overall fantastic series.
I would not say fantastic. I thought it was a good series overall. There's just way too much in there that drags for me that I can for me to be able to consider it a fantastic series. Like that first episode I could barely get through. The second episode I could barely get through. And then third, the third episode was good. The fourth episode was great. Fifth and sixth episodes again, drug again. There was just too much in there that I don't anticipate I'll ever want to go back and rewatch this.
Oh, I probably won't either. I'll probably never rewatch it again. But I mean, when you look at the fact they brought in Agatha and then the White Vision, who's now back to being Vision, so now we have Vision back in the MCU, the original Vision, not this created version of Vision. And then her becoming the Scarlet Witch, and now the multi-dimensional thing that they got at the end of the series, at the end of the credits, with Wanda hearing her Billy and Tommy calling out to her.
Hmm.
The whole emphasis on how she's more powerful than the Sorcerer Supreme. So now and she's got the Book of the Damned. So now we've got the whole Stephen, Doctor Strange tie-in. And I know she's supposed to be a big character in the new Doctor Strange movie. The way it set everything up, the way it introduced some characters that we haven't had. I mean, even Monica Rambeau. now, she's got superpowers too, and she's going to be a part of the Captain Marvel movie that's coming out. I just like the way that I liked the story itself about this being Wanda's grief. I liked how that uh, army dude, I can't remember his name, kind of tried to twist it so that it was all Wanda's fault, but it really wasn't Wanda's fault. And then everything, the story involved, the way they built characters up, especially Scarlet Witch, the way they opened it up for future movies and stuff. I just absolutely loved it.
Fair enough. I it definitely does set up a lot of things. I just feel like it could have been done, maybe in a 2 hour movie instead of, and done it better than, having us sit through all these stupid sitcom things.
Yeah,
I, and yes, I understand why it happened. I understand the conceit of the show, but there was just still so much in there that was just really, really, really boring.
yeah, and I agree with that. It would have worked better as a 2-hour movie as opposed to 9 hours of episodes. Well,
Right. I
eight
mean, they
hours of
could. I
episodes
mean,
or whatever.
they could have said, they could have just shown, here's. I mean, and I realize that it makes you feel more for the characters doing the way they did, but it also was just, it felt like a big waste of time. You know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can see your point there. It probably definitely would have worked better as a 2-hour movie.
Yeah. But I mean, I think the last three episodes are just fantastic. But and I think the fourth episode is great as well. But I just felt like overall I can't say it's anything more than. And I had I kind of told my dad, you should watch this, but try, it's tough to get through the first couple episodes, and he can't even do that because Disney, because his for some reason Disney Plus for him will not let him finish watching that first episode.
Oh wow. Yeah, and I mean, I guess I grew up on Nick at Night, which showed all those old Dick Van Dyke and Bewitched and Honeymooners and all that stuff. Back then, that was considered classic TV. Now I think it's showing Friends and stuff like that. But back in the day, it was all those. So I remember watching all these shows. So I didn't have as hard a time with those first 2 and 3 episodes as you did.
Well, I watched a lot of those shows growing up as well, but it doesn't mean I liked them or I wanted to keep or wanted to watch them again.
Oh, see,
You
and
know.
I'll watch, if I'm flipping through channels and I run across one of those shows, I'll usually just stop it because it's like comfort food for me.
Yeah, see, and though they just annoy the hell out of me, like those old style sitcoms just annoy me. So
I loved especially the 50s, like I can't think of it.
Happy
My
Days.
Well, yeah, I loved Happy Days too. I was a huge Happy Days fan. And same thing with Three's Company and um, Brady Bunch and all that stuff. And then when you go back
Oh,
even
Brady Bunch is
early,
terrible.
when you go back even earlier, I loved the Dick Van Dyke Show. I loved Bewitched. I loved Honeymooners. There was another one I can't think of the name of it. It was like My Three Sons, I believe it was called, where it was a single dad and three kids, which I really liked. So it was the first 2 episodes were more of that comfort food feeling for me. So I didn't hate them as much as I thought I was going to.
Three's Company is a great show,
Yeah.
but I mean it's really hard for me to find a sitcom that I really really enjoy, and that so yeah, that probably did make it harder for me.
When they got into the 2000s with the Office ripoff, that one was a little bit much for me.
And the other thing with this with it was it just coming in was, okay, these are my least two favorite characters on the Avengers. Um, so it's really going to be tough for me to kind of to try to get myself into this to where I'm going to enjoy these two characters. By the end of the show, I really enjoyed Wanda's character, but it took a long time for me to get there.
Yeah,
And
Vision.
a lot of it is simply that Wanda in the comics I do enjoy, but this is like the first time they've actually portrayed Wanda's powers to actually be Wanda's powers.
Well, yeah, and that's exactly it. I mean, and they made it the way that Agatha explained it is that she's always had these powers. It's
Hmm.
just the Mind Stone woke them up, which I thought was a really cool thing to see too. The fake Pietro was disturbing. Um, I like the way that they explained it, but it still doesn't explain how Billy has super speed. I would have more expected Billy to have, some kind of powers more like his dad did than Uncle Pietro. Because before they explained that they already had these powers in them, um, I was thinking that he was given that super speed from the Mind Stone. So it didn't make sense how her offspring would have it.
Well, um she really created them anyway. So whoever whatever she created them to have is what they would have, I suppose.
Right. Yeah, and I mean I get that, but the way that it was portrayed and brought into the universe, it was one of those, wait a minute, why would he have super speed? If Pietro was given the super speed by the Mind Stone, it's not like it's a genetic tracer in the DNA of the family. But after they explained that, she always had these powers, the Mind Stone just woke it up, it made a little more sense.
Could we consider Billy and what was the other guy's name? I can't
Tommy,
remember.
Billy and
And Billy
Tommy.
and Tom. Yeah, Tommy was Speed and Billy is Wiccan, right?
Okay, yeah.
Um, yeah. Could we consider these two to be the first mutants we've seen in the MCU now?
Well, and there was a lot of talk about how this was Pietro, this was Quicksilver's X-Men version. Which, when you look at it, I mean, the guy that played Quicksilver in the movies was the guy who played Pietro in the show. It made a lot of sense, but ultimately, was it really the X-Men version that was Pietro in this?
No, it wasn't because it was Barry whatever.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, they kind of killed that, but that would have been a good way to tie in the X-Men into the MCU because I know they've got the rights to it now, don't they?
They do, yeah,
I mean, that would have been a great way because I mean, Jesus Christ, they used the Quicksilver character from Days of Futures Past. Why not use that as a perfect tie-in?
yeah. There's even a presumptive story that's kind of been rumored that they're going with for the next for their first X-Men movie.
Okay.
So which is which I kind of which I guess I should have expected, but which annoys me because it's more fucking Professor X. So
Well, hopefully it's at least Xavier or McAvoy's version.
no, it'll be a completely different version.
I like McAvoy's version.
I don't like any version.
That's right, you're not a Professor X fan.
How can you be? He's a complete fucking asshole.
Well, yeah, but that's why I like McAvoy's version. He was an asshole, but still likable.
No, he wasn't because he shouldn't have been in 5 fucking movies.
Um, okay, so yeah, I mean, I don't have anything else to say on any of this stuff. Like, the Mask of Phantasm made more sense when I realized it was made in '93. I was really in the wrong mindset to watch that. And then I really truly enjoyed WandaVision. I really did.
I don't understand. I can't. I don't. Yeah. It blows my mind you didn't like Master of the Phantasm, but I guess if you don't like animated movies, that's
And I
you know.
was, like I said, I was in the wrong mindset. I was thinking it was, a much newer cartoon, so I was expecting a little bit more of modern flashiness. Um, I was set, not only in the wrong time frame, but then that opening credit with the comedy Looney Tunes Warner Brother thing got me into a really weird mood about it too. So, I mean, there was a lot of things about it.
Okay. Well, I just want to ask you to watch an animated movie with me again.
Or at least give me some pretext to it. Let me know it
Well,
was made in
I didn't
1992.
I didn't realize you weren't going to know that because, like I said, I remember this coming out in '93, so I thought you would as well.
Oh God, no. Like I said, I don't remember 93, 94, and 95.
Yeah.
It's
Uh,
just all a blur to me.
Yeah, that I've and just going back to that really briefly, like I've there's a lot of people that think this is the best Batman movie ever. Which I can see why they would think that. I don't personally agree. I don't think it's as good as Dark Knight for one thing,
No.
um, but I've also like read, there's also critics that think this is the best animated movie ever, and I'm not
That
sure I can
I,
go with that. Sure go
yeah.
with that either. So,
Yeah, I have a hard
uh,
time with either one of those statements. I
I
mean,
mean, I mean, to me, there's my favorite, and I've watched quite a few of them. My favorite DC animated movie to this point is still Flashpoint, the Flashpoint
see, and
Paradox.
I've never seen the animated version of that, but I've actually wanted to.
Yeah, I think it's there's people that are like it's too dark. Well, fuck you, it's too dark. It's awesome.
It's
So
because, and that's what we want out of our comic book characters now.
Yeah.
We don't want them to be these 1970s Superman.
No. No, we don't.
We want them to have, to show that they're troubled. I mean, Jesus Christ, Superman's an alien from a planet billions of light years away that exploded and he lost his entire family. Why would he be all happy and, oh, I'm gonna be a do-gooder? Of course he'd be fucking brooding. You know? It's just those are the type. Batman lost his entire family. It explains why he's brooding. It's Vic Cyborg. Look at all the tragedy he went through. The fact that they always, portrayed these characters as fun-loving and do-gooders for the sake of do-gooding was one of those things that never really made sense to me. But now that they're more of a, okay, I get it, I get it. Of course they're tormented and brooding.
Yeah, and that's why I like that version of Superman so much better than the original is because it makes more sense. Yeah, he was raised by a good, loving family to use his powers for good if he was going to use them. But actually, actually his dad told him don't use them.
Right,
You're all you're gonna do is cause more problems for yourself if you use them.
right.
You know.
Yeah, and I mean, he's constantly facing danger, and yeah, I get it. He's Man of Steel. It's hard to destroy him, but it just, how can you get a realization, even if it's when you're 18, that your entire family was destroyed on a planet billions of light years away, and you're the only survivor, and you have no blood and all this stuff? Why would you not occasionally have moments where you're brooding a little bit?
It kind of makes me want to go back and watch Smallville again too, because I've only like seen like the first 2.5 seasons of Smallville, but I kind of remember and not that he was this dark and brooding, but I kind of remember Tom Welling's version of Clark Kent. Where John Snyder's version of Jonathan Kent was kind of the same way um, as Kevin Costner's version, and that led Welling to kind of being more like shy and a little bit darker. Even though I'm not saying he didn't have a sense of humor, he definitely did. I'm just saying
Right.
that it kind of seemed the same way, where he was a little bit more reluctant to jump in and help people.
Yeah, and I mean, and the little bit of Smallville I've seen, I haven't seen a ton of it, but the little bit of Smallville I've seen, I enjoyed. I especially enjoyed the Lex Luthor in that
Yeah,
show. So that might be something I wouldn't mind going back and rewatching. And like I said, it wouldn't be like rewatching because I've only seen a few random episodes here and there. I'd be watching it for the first time.
yeah.
But you're right. I mean, I remember the Tom Welling character kind of brooding a little bit. Even Brandon Roth, when he tried to reboot it, was more of a brooding Superman than definitely Christopher Reeves was.
Yeah. I do I will let's say one more thing about Superman here is that I will not go to watch the new Superman that's coming out. I will not embrace this vision of a black Superman just for the sake of having a Superman character that's black.
I haven't heard anything about it.
Okay.
This is all news to me.
Well, basically, they basically have said, and again, this is what Warner is saying, not what AT&T is saying. So who knows? If AT&T is going to say, uh, you can squash these plans now. But Warner has come out and said, J.J. Abrams is going to produce, and this author that like writes like racial social justice stuff is going to write the movie, and it's going to be a black Superman. Not Clark Kent. It's going to be a black Superman from another reality, but it's still going to be a black Superman. You can create a whole new character. You don't have to call him Superman. So
That is going to be rough. Like for the simple fact that you're going to tie in. I mean, I get it. They've tied in multi dimensions in the DCU on TV, but they've also destroyed all the multi dimensions.
mhm.
So now you're not only talking about bringing in a multi dimension into a universe where it doesn't exist anymore, you're also uh, trying to loop in a character that we already know and are really familiar with, and you're going to have to retro it back to before Crisis.
Yep.
Wow, that's going to be a disaster in the making.
Yeah.
There's
Well, it's
that's three things that they're going up against.
it's a disaster in the making, but my big thing with it is, why are you doing this? Just because there might be black people out there that want to see a Superman. Well, create a new character for them. It doesn't have to be Superman. It can be somebody else. You know, it drives me nuts.
Well, we talked about bringing back the John Stewart version of Green Lantern.
Yeah,
That would work and be amazing. Um,
yeah, and well, I mean, and they are also coming out with the Green Lantern show that may feature John Stewart or may not. Who knows? But
I'm hoping it features John Diggle because it John Diggle feels right as a new Lantern.
well, and his stepfather's name was Colonel Stewart, or was
Oh,
General
that's right, it
Stewart.
was, wasn't
So
it?
yeah,
Okay,
so John Diggle really would be John Stewart.
that makes sense. You're right.
The
I
uh,
didn't catch that before.
the but there's also but even like in the Superman in the even in like the we've seen Superman Doomsday, right? But they really didn't do like a Superman, um like a Reign of the Superman in the DCEU, where there really is there is the Superman that comes along called Steel. We saw I think a really bad movie with Shaq playing the role of Steel like back in the 90s, right?
Yeah, and
But
I totally forgot about that.
but they could do they could, if they wanted to do like a black version of Steel. I mean, I shouldn't say a black version because Steel is black, but I mean, why not just do that, or another character that has similar powers to Superman? They don't have to call him Superman. Is my whole point.
Yeah,
You know.
and I agree with that.
So
I
yeah,
yeah, I
that's
mean, it's not something that's going to tie into their overarching, DCEU that they're doing. It's going to be something completely separate from that. And I think that would be like if MCU all of a sudden threw Jane Foster in a standalone movie as Thor. It doesn't fit with what's going on in the MCU right now.
right, and she's gonna be Thor in Love and Thunder, it's not. But it's also going to have the original Thor in there as well. So we're going to get to see the actual story play out.
Yeah, we're going to get to see the two kind of, but this would be like say before Thor 2 came out. If all of a
Right.
sudden we just had a standalone Jane Foster Thor movie. It's just bad
Yes.
timing.
Yeah, it is.
Like, I
It's
mean,
it's
maybe
it's
if they wanted to, maybe, I don't know, kill off this version of Superman because I know his contracts are done and he's not going to be playing Superman going forward. They could do in that standalone movie maybe a way of finding out that there was another Kryptonian that made it to Earth, um, and so he takes up the mantle of Superman.
well, wouldn't it make more sense to do a black Batman? like
True,
like
very
Bruce
true.
Wayne. We've already got this old version of Bruce Wayne who's looking to retire or possibly in the future. So wouldn't it make more sense for him to hang up his cowl and have selected a new you know I guess it'd be kind of the same thing as what's going on with Batwoman, but to have a bat, that he selected, like a black guy to be the new Batman. I mean, that would make more sense.
Or even,
But
maybe
but they're not.
have.
But you know what? That's the thing is Warner is not interested in making sense or interested in doing diverse shows that are going to appeal to a diverse audience. When really what's going to happen, because that's not who reads comics, is they're going to completely bomb and alienate their fan base. So.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't know. It would be nice if they have two characters that they could figure out a way to do it with. If they really wanted a black main character, they've got. I can't remember Henry Cavill. I I think I read
Yeah.
somewhere that he was done as Superman after Justice League.
He really wants to do more of it. He's kind of getting pissed off that they're not doing a Superman trilogy for him.
Oh,
So,
okay. But I mean, they could, they could easily take their time and they could write it into, if they don't want to proceed with Henry Cavill, they could easily give him
which is a
another
dumb,
movie.
I'm sorry, which is a really really dumb decision
Oh yeah, because
because
he's my favorite. He's my favorite Superman of any variation I've seen on TV or movies. He is easily my favorite Superman.
and he's also got the looks that are going to draw in the female audience as
Right,
well.
exactly. But I mean, if they did decide to go a different direction, they've got a storyline where they can make it make sense. somehow, even if, in history we're like, oh, that doesn't make sense. He's the last son of Krypton. Now all of a sudden there's another son of Krypton. Oh, really? Well, who are those other two guys that, that he fought in Man of Steel? You know, so
Yeah.
they've got the platform already in place because of not only Man of Steel, but previous storylines that he is not the last person to escape Krypton.
Right.
There could be another person that escaped Krypton, and Superman somehow dies again, like he did with Doomsday in Batman versus Superman, and this new guy takes up the mantle.
Well, we know there's at least one more Kryptonian still on the planet because they still haven't introduced Kara Zor-El um, in the DCEU yet.
Yeah,
So
I don't know if they're going to. That's the thing.
I'm pretty sure they are.
You think so?
I'm pretty sure she's gonna be in the Flash movie.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'd be okay with that. I would definitely be okay with that. Well, we talked for an hour on this. I was expecting 15 minutes.
Yeah, we wanted to make our next show a little bit shorter. So
But I mean, not much really going on. The only thing I really was able to watch was Ring of Honor.
yeah, that was a great show though.
Yeah,
So
it did have some really good moments. So we'll talk about that here in about 10 minutes.
we'll see you guys in a few minutes here for more Kingdom of Honor, whatever it's called.